Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for everybody actually who organized the great event, and thanks for the people who oversee the scene. You might be a bit surprised, plastic surgeons talking about organ donation. I wear a few different hats. I'm here because I've got this great interest in organ donation for the last probably maybe 20 years. And I chair the British Islamic Association, the BIMA. And one of the main functions for BIMA is really getting engagement like this event, which is great. So I know there'll be, inshallah, Sheikh Mansour is sitting somewhere, and he will go in details into the Islamic position on organ donation. But here I'm probably maybe just going to give some introduction. I'm not going to get into this again because Dr. Ahmad already mentioned how important it is to the organ donation and what sort of figures for the renal failure. I just put this slide particularly just to show you. In Bradford, we know the Asian community probably maybe form 19–20%. But if you see the population on the waiting list for renal transplant is actually almost 60%. I know this figure is from 2014. The last figure probably maybe touching close to 50%. So it is really very important problem. And I know, unfortunately, there's some missing figures here. The refusal for transplant. You can see this many times because the great demand for donation within the Muslim Asian community, because it's a matching tissue, so you need to make sure the tissue is really matching to allow the good result. Again, this figure, I'm not going to go into details, but it's if you just focus on this and see these figures from 2004, but unfortunately it's still reflecting the fact that 1.8 of the donors are from the Asian community. If you look at the recipient side, we are on the recipient side, why 8.1. And this is something wrong here. We need to look at why this is like this. Again, if you look at probably maybe a bit more results 3 years ago, if you just maybe see here, out of 944 Asian on the waiting list, only 25 being donating. So it's 1 to 38. So what I'm going to do today, we had a research. This research done a while ago. This is actually published in almost 14 years ago in the American Journal of Transplant on what's the attitude of the Muslim population in the UK towards organ donation and the reason of this attitude. So almost 1,300 people being interviewed in many different cities in the UK. As you can see here, when the Asian population, and mainly Muslim Asian populations, obviously being interviewed. So what the question was, why don't you support organ donation? This was the actual question, to find out the reason for not being on the organ registry. And many answers being given. We need to get our funerals done as soon as possible, and we know this is actually as a custom for the Muslim community to get the deceased buried as soon as possible. Some of them say, this is against my religion. This is what they understood. Some say, I read the Quran, I have never found anything about organ donation mentioned in the Quran. Some people say, I don't know anything myself, so I ask the people, I ask the mullah, I ask the imam, and they will tell me if it's right or not. Some people say, our body should be dealt in a very gentle way. I don't want people to start cutting out and start mutilating my body. Some people say, our organs, they're not spare parts, so how come I'm going to leave my organs? And this is actually a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so I'm not giving my organs to anyone. Other answer was, we don't want to extend our life. Our life, say, as Dr. Ahmad said, probably maybe worse condition being on the dialysis, and this, you probably maybe would rather having many cancer, including kidney cancer, rather just having kidney failure. But some people say, look, I don't want to extend my life. some people say, if there's no organs, who's going to witness my action? I mean, you know, from some of the hadiths that every part of the body would probably contribute towards what you've done. But that's the understanding of the people questioned here. And the last one say, who's going to benefit from my organs? I want to make sure the person is actually believers, my religion. And this was one of the answers. So I'm just going to go through these questions and try to argue. So one of the questions said, what if anything would encourage you to register as organ donor? Good number, probably 1 in 5. They say, if my religion supported. So Muslims who refuse transplant use different argument. And if we try to go through the arguments, as I mentioned before the answer, I've put it in 5, 6 arguments. So we'll go through them actually one by one. The first main argument is actually cutting or breaking the bones of death. We know the hadith, very famous hadith. Rasulullah said, "Kasru azm al-mayyit ka kasrihi hayya," means breaking the bones of death is the same as breaking the bones of the living. And this is being used to tell the people, because during battles, people used to mutilate. And you probably maybe know Sayyidina Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib, the uncle of prophets, being very badly mutilated. And this is what really this sort of hadith being given. People, they use it as, yes, true, you don't want to mutilate people. But if you look at how organ donation is being and transplant being treated, it's done in a very dignified way, as some of the speakers, Vincent put it very clearly, done in a quite good way. And not only this, this is actually taken from Liverpool Hospital was probably maybe the best to even perform kidney transplant through keyhole surgery. This is 4 or 5 years ago. So it's done in a very dignified way, in a very in a theater place, and happened in a. Not only this, we try even to get the best out of the transplant. So, normally, when we transfer organs, we use either the cord preservation, and now, recently, the OCS as well, they using the organ system, the organ care system, by keeping, I'm putting this example as the heart transplant, when we use the coronary blood flow. And this is actually fascinating to see how they keep the blood going through the heart, even outside the body after being retrieved, to make sure the heart will stay viable even longer. So that will give probably maybe double times, from 3-4 hours to almost 8 to 9 hours. So the heart keeps pumping even in the box till it's being transferred. Not only the heart, even can be done for other organs like livers. So this is being taken out of the body, and the heart still pumping. So that's increased from almost 4 hours to 9 hours. So this is taken from Glasgow Center, and you can tell how great this benefit having the area around. So the second argument, back to the argument, the second argument is, you don't own your body. You are trusted to keep it. So this is not your property. This is Allah has given to you, and you need to look after it. This is true. But again, you are trusted to keep your money, and you've been asked as well to give charity out of your money. So the ayahs, as you can read here, from Surah Al-Hadid, آمنوا بالله ورسوله وأنفقوا مما جعلكم مستخلفين فيه فالذين آمنوا منكم وأنفقوا لهم أجر كبير. Spend out of what you has made you in charge of, and your body, part of it, if you can donate. Obviously, there's conditions. There's some organs you cannot donate. You've got one heart, you can't donate as a living donor. Other argument, this will open abuse and misuse of a human body. That's true. That's true. And that's why Islam actually put conditions for this. And this is probably maybe put in a very careful way. And this is why I believe, and this is why we are here today. In the subcontinent, unfortunately, because of the misuse and the great misuse, unfortunately, so many of the ulama, especially from the Hanafi Mazhab, they were slightly very conservative against organ donation because of the misuse. And there's no organ banks, there's the commercial issues, people might go different ways. So they say, okay, let's do, as probably maybe the ulama knows here, said to the dhara'i. If it's something probably maybe suspicious, let's stop it. We don't want any headache. And this is unfortunately being position of some of the ulama. I'm not going to go into details, but I'll leave it to Brother Mansour to go through in more details. But unfortunately, in Islam, if you look at it in a careful way, there is answer for this, and there's condition associated for living donors, deceased donors, in a very careful way. Some people that argue because you need to take it back to Allah on the Day of Judgment. Yeah, but I mean, suppose if you're in the sea, being eaten by sharks or being completely burned in fire, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will build you up from scratch. And you know the ayah in Surah Yasin, we all read it, وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسِيَ خَلْقَهُ قَالَ مَنْ يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ قُلْ يُحْيِيهَا الَّذِي أَنشَأَهَا أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ خَلْقٍ عَلِيمٌ. Who will give life to bones while they are disintegrated? He who will give them life, created them for the first time. We all know that. The other attitude, actually, Muslims should not give their organs to unbelievers. Unfortunately, this is said, but this is exactly against what Islam said. You read the ayah in Surah Al-Anbiya, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Not only to Muslims. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and very clearly can you read it here? And we have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to all mankind. Mankind, not only to particular people, to Quraysh or to Arabia, it's all mankind. And we have to take this attitude. We need to have the charities to everyone, Muslims or non-Muslims. So, organ transplant view is obviously based on many principles. And I would like to touch on the maqasid al-sharia. Again, probably maybe Brother Mansour will go in more details. What we mean by maqasid al-sharia is the reason, the principles of the sharia, the principles of Islam in general. And we know that the maqasid mainly, it's the aim of the sharia, is mainly protection of religion, hifz al-deen, protection of and saving life, hifz al-nafs, protection of family lineage, hifz al-nasr, protection of property, hifz al-mal, and protection of intellect, hifz al-aql. So this is, if you go to all Islamic principles, this is going around one of these. And obviously the organ donation comes under the saving of lives. Again, as mentioned before, SubhanAllah, this is a great ayah. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. And if you can read it here, and if anyone saved a life, it would be as if he saved the lives of the whole mankind. I mean, we put this for the bima in our poster, and always trying to remind the people. And as mentioned before, I mean, this one body can probably maybe help 13 people, whether probably maybe life-saving or just helping, and as many organs can be taken with, whether it's actually solid organs or soft tissue. And imagine how many person would benefit from organ donation. We know from the old madahib, from the old teaching of Islam as well, even Shafi'i school allowed dissecting dead pregnant lady in order to retrieve a baby. And also, if somebody actually swallowed, this has been discussed over 1,000 years ago. And some people, they have some sort of position, even from the Muslim school. If somebody actually swallowed gold, some people allow this to retrieve. This is important property, so we can cut the stomach. And they discussed the fuqaha. We can cut the stomach, take the gold, and so this is being discussed as a position. It's not like something new. But if you look at, I'm slightly a bit surprised because 40 years after organ transplant, organ donation is being discussed since, if you look at, I'm sorry. If you look at 1979, 40 years and we're still debating this. 40 years, thank you. 40 years we're still debating this. Slightly bit, I mean, if you look at it here, this is from the Mufti of Egypt, Sheikh Jad al-Haq, Ali Jad al-Haq. And again, from the Council of Kuwait in 1979, in Saudi Arabia, the Hayat Kibar al-Ulama in the Supreme Council of Islamic Scholars. Again, this is actually in Al-Azhar in 1988, they produced a fatwa supporting organ donation. Munazzamat Alam Islami, the Organization of Islamic Conference, they support organ donations. Unfortunately, we are, because in Britain, let's admit, because of the Asian community, they like to get the fatwa from the Asian community background. And this is why we're struggling, because the ulama over in India and Pakistan, they still have some sort of reservation. And this is why we need to tackle this together. I think probably this sort of event will help. But recently, even in this country, we had the European Council of Fatwa Research, which is based in Dublin, in Ireland. They produced in 95. Sheikh Yusuf Qaradal as well. In fact, this is interesting because when you have people, they don't look at as the necessity. They go beyond this. So from the Uqtirar to an Ikhtiyar, you don't have the necessity. You go, in fact, it's a charity. He put it as this is a form of charity, ongoing charity, Sadaqa Jariyah. And I feel this is actually the way we should go for it. Muslim Council of Britain also produced a fatwa, and recently, this is only 3 days ago, which Sheikh Zubair Bakr from Bradford, he produced a long fatwa, and Dr. Mansour Ali, he will probably tell us a bit more about it. FEMA, which is the Federation of Islamic Medical Association, which BIMA is part of it, 52 Muslim medical associations that produce many fatwa to support, or many opinions to support organ donation. The Center of Islam Medicine as well in the UK, they did. And I'm not going to go into details here, but again, look at this very nice hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. من فرج عن أخيه كربة من كرب الدنيا فرج الله عنه كربة من كرب يوم القيامة. Whoever helps a brother in difficulty, Allah will help them through his difficulty at the day of judgment. Again, I know there's some issues, but I still feel, I think it's morally, ethically, maybe it's not right. I would say this is the minimum I can say. When we are in the recipient side, we take organs with 88.1% compared to 1.7, 1.8. So there's something wrong. We allow to receive, but we don't allow to donate. I think as a community, as a Muslim community, we need to ask ourselves why. Is that something we can accept to carry on? I think this is why we need this debate within the ulama and with the community as well. I'm not going to go through this. I'll probably maybe leave it to the discussion for the presumed consent. The Vince had already touched on this. And I know that the rule is going to change. The train is running, is going. Whether we're going to jump in or not, it is going. So I think it's a time to choose what to do. By the way, the European Council for Fatwa and Research, they've already supported the presumed consent. Somebody might be a bit surprised. Sheikh Abdullah Judeh, who's the Amin al-Am in Leeds, is the chair of Leeds Grand Mosque. They're quite supportive of presumed consent, which is already in Jazakallah. I don't think we need to add anything.